right, good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of What's on the List. Today we have joining us as our special guest is Mr. Florian Ratz. And Mr. Florian is going to join us today from Aspect Wines. And he's here to talk about a wine on our list that is from Old Canada.
That's right. Thank you, Velecia, for having me. Thanks for, having some of our wines on your list at this beautiful club. One of the things that's always fun is, believe it or not, Canadian wine. We have a lot of Canadians, not only in membership here, but obviously living in this area. And whenever I do wine tastings, a lot of folks tend to ask me, hey, why don't you have any Canadian wine? So at some point, Velecia and I were talking and said, you know what, in the grander spectrum of making the list a little bit more international and a little bit broader, let's add some Canadian wine and see if some of those folks will enjoy a taste of home while they're here. And so we started with adding a little Bordeaux blend out of Niagara-on-the-Lake, so Chateau de Charmes. And that's a beautiful area for those who are listening who are not from Canada, who don't know that. It's about 45 minutes away from the Niagara Falls. And Niagara Falls get all the glory, right? That's where everybody goes and explores. But Niagara-on-the-Lake is actually very quaint, very beautiful, directly on Lake Ontario. And believe it or not, there's a lot of wine that is grown there. And whenever you think of Canadian wine, the first thing people think of is ice wine. And yes, that has its place, but Bordeaux varietals actually tend to grow really, really well. And there's a reason for that. So Bordeaux varietals, we're talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, technically Malbec, Petit Verdot. Bordeaux itself in France isn't one of the warmest areas. So you can actually kind of, if you have a similar climate to that, you can replicate that in many different areas of the world. So turns out that really one thing that you need is called phenolic ripeness, and that is more daytime. So as long as you've got daytime and you can kind of get some circumstances to get those grapes right, you will get those lush flavors. You will get those kind of, medium body to full body, raspberry, dark fruit, little chocolate finish. Those what we really love, Bordeaux flavors for. So what happens is that in Canada, you get a little bit more daylight. So if you kind of think about where it is in relation to other wine growing areas, Washington, for example, is already 2 hours more daylight than the Napa Valley is, and Canada has just a little bit more than that as well. So again, longer daytime, longer growing season, and phenolic ripeness essentially is when the grape itself is as ripe as the seeds, as everything. Everything is ripe at the same time of the grape, and that really helps to kind of reduce the bitterness and reduce, the acidity that you do have in a cooler climate, and makes it more palatable. So you can kind of emulate that Bordeaux taste.
What would you say this wine is best paired with?
Well, as a Bordeaux, it is a little bit of a lighter style, so it definitely has some freshness to this. You still get some red fruit flavors, a lot of dark fruit flavors. For me, this is a great pairing with charcuterie. Really, any grilled meat, for that matter, will always work with a Bordeaux. It's a pretty safe choice. For those of you who've got a sweet tooth, chocolate cake.
So shall we try?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
This will develop a little bit as well, in case you picked that up and you don't want to finish that right away. It's been an oak for about 6 months, so that does help the ageability. As you can see kind of from the color here, a little bit of a lighter style than you would get directly out of Bordeaux.
Okay.
Kind of get those cassis notes right on the nose, a little bit of raspberry. Let's see what this tastes like. Cheers.
Yum.
What do you think?
It is delicious, like you said. It is not as oaky. Very light, tiny, actually. The fruit is just fruit forward, easy to drink. Not what I was expecting from a wine from Canada. And this one is all singing in the glass.
Much like Canada, it'll benefit from a little chill. So a little bit of crispness on the temperature.
All right, so chill it a little bit before you drink it. That's all you ask. All right, well, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us for another episode of What's on the List. Cheers.
Cheers.